Here are the top 5 reasons for annoying pain at night because of hip osteoarthritis. The first reason is compounding irritation throughout the day. If you're slightly irritating your hip joint throughout the day as you go to do your normal daily activities, if you're on your feet for longer periods of time, or if you do something that just strains your hip a little bit because it's more difficult than other things you do, and it causes some hip pain, and then typically people will take a break, rest it, recover from that, and then do it again later on in the day. And if this process repeats, then you continue to irritate your hip joint at the cartilage over and over again. And throughout the day, especially if this is happening multiple days on end, then you're getting compounding irritation at the hip joint. And by the time you go to lie down to go to sleep, that poor cartilage inside of your hip joint is just so irritated that it's got a long ways to heal and recover. So it can become very painful when you're trying to go to bed. It's the same as if you had a cut on your skin and you begin to rub it or bother it. If you get to the end of the day, it's going to throb and hurt. And if you don't give it its space and time to heal properly, if the next day comes and you're rubbing and hurting it again inadvertently, then it's going to hurt again the next night. A wound or an irritation just hurts no matter if you're asleep or awake. You have to get rid of the irritation in order for it to not hurt as much at night. And reason number 2 is that distractions to your pain are gone. See, when you're finally getting to bed at night and you're turning down the lights, all the noises are starting to go away, all the conversations end, and you're winding down so that you can fall asleep, all those things, all those lights, noises, sounds were distractions taking up your attention. And when all that's left is you lying in your bed and the pain talking to you at night, it can feel much louder than throughout the day. Because during the day, you're thinking about things and you're making decisions and you're moving around and taking care of tasks. And all those activities require some of the attention span that you have. And even though the pain might be there, it may not seem as loud, it may not seem as intense because you're thinking about what you're going to eat. You're thinking about the chores you have to do. You're doing things that maybe don't hurt you a ton, but you don't worry about the pain. Let me take it to an extreme example. Let's say that you have your hip arthritis like you do right now, and a loved one is in danger and you have to rush over to them to help them. You're probably not going to think about your hip arthritis in the moment. You're probably just going to get there and your brain does this amazing thing where it shuts out the pain so that you can go do that thing that you have to do. Of course, later on, you might flare it up. It's going to hurt. The pain's going to come back. But that's because your attention is off the emergency thing that's in front of you. Well, this happens to a smaller scale, this shifting your brain, when you're thinking about a decision that you have to make, even as simple as like, where do I have to drive next? Or what's the next chore on my list? Or what am I going to pick off the shelf at the grocery store next? As you're going through those decisions throughout the day, it's taking up your attention and slightly taking it off of your pain. But when nighttime comes, all those things tend to go away and the pain can seem louder at that moment. Reason number 3 for pain at night from hip arthritis is a lack of movement. Inside the ball and socket joint of the hip, there's a little bit of fluid. And that fluid is important for nourishing the cartilage on the ends of the bone, on the end of the ball and on the inside of the socket. And if that fluid doesn't get a whole lot of movement, then you're not circulating the nutrients that you need to nourish the cartilage inside the joint. Now, in a normal, healthy hip, the movements that you do throughout the day to do your daily activities should be enough to maintain the health of your hip cartilage. But in an injured hip, in an arthritic hip joint that's trying to not be so irritated throughout the day, is trying to recover every night because that's when you do the most healing, it doesn't have enough nutrients in the fluid usually to go through the healing processes that it needs to. So your body will wake you up in the middle of the night to get some movement in, to get that fluid to move around and refresh it. And this happens during the day too. If you're sitting around and not moving a whole lot for whatever reason, your work, your lifestyle, it hurts, all those reasons can be valid reasons to not move, then you're not circulating that fluid, but it can wake you up at night. Number 4 is the position that you're in at night. If you're taking your hip joint to an end range position, at the end range is all the muscles, all the tendons and ligaments around the hip joint wind up and add compression to the joint. Plus the ends of the bones, like where the socket, the edge of the socket meets the where the ball comes to it, if you're getting the hip to the end range there, then you're also going to add extra compressive forces to the hip joints. And you might be able to tolerate it enough to fall asleep, but it might wake you up in the middle of the night. Very much like if you're in an awkward position and your leg falls asleep, it may actually start to hurt and it wakes you up in the middle of the night because it's your body's way of making you move out of that position that's painful. Now, let me show you some positions that patients tell me they're commonly finding pain in, and I tell them to avoid those positions, and then some things you could try instead. One of the most common sleeping positions that aggravates the hip is sleeping with the hip that's involved on the top and the thigh coming this way, because in this position at the hip joint, the ball is starting to butt up against the edge of the socket, and it's especially bad if that bottom leg goes straight and then you let that knee fall all the way down, because then you get compression on the inside of the hip joint right here. Another position that could be painful is just lying on your back completely flat like this, because especially if you have back issues, which are common with hip arthritis because of the muscle imbalance that's involved, it can affect the back. If you're lying on your back just like this, it can put some strain on the hip joint, and it may not be the most comfortable. Some solutions to this is simply using a pillow between your legs. If you get the pillow and put it right between your legs right here, it changes the hip joint position, it opens it up, and it puts your hip joint into a position where there's less compression through the joint, and it tends to be more comfortable. Now you can fold the pillow over or put two pillows, or they even sell special pillows that are shaped to hold your thighs in position. Any of those solutions can work to get your hips in this position. Now, if you're lying on your back, because that's what you like to do when you sleep, just put the pillow under your legs, and you might need 2, maybe even 3 pillows. They sell wedge-shaped pillows and round pillows that can help you out, like cylinder-shaped pillows. And the idea is, if you put a little bit of a bend in your hips and knees by putting the pillow under your knees like this, that flexion is what it's called, where your leg goes up this way. It puts that hip joint in a more comfortable position to not over-compress everything by tensioning up the ligaments and the tendons and muscles around the hip joints. And number 5 is by far the biggest reason for pain at night. It's not addressing the root muscle imbalance that causes hip joint arthritis. And here's why. If you don't fix a root problem, then what most people are looking to do is they're doing stretches or taking pain medications, maybe doing exercises to help them sleep better at night. They're using pillows, they're getting injections at the doctor's office. All of these things are great at providing you with some short-term relief so that you might get through a night or 2 or 3 of sleep without your hip bothering you as much, but they're not going to solve the problem for the long term. Because if you address that root muscle imbalance that takes the bad pressures off your hip joint and allows it to be less irritated throughout the day, even though you're doing your daily activities, even though you're getting back to things like exercising, if your hip joint's healthy, you're doing all those things, then getting to sleep at night is easier because you have less irritation. You don't have that compounding irritation happening. So you can tolerate sleeping in an awkward position with your hip. You can tolerate being still for longer periods of time, and you don't have to worry about getting special pillows, because if you fix that muscle imbalance, then your hip joint is going to heal, the cartilage will heal, and you won't have to worry about missing out on sleep. Hey, if you're looking for guidance on solving the root problem, the muscle imbalance that sets up hip arthritis, I've got tons of videos here on YouTube to help you with that. There's a playlist that I've developed called the Hip Arthritis Help Playlist. There's a link to it in the description below. It'll show you all our videos related to hip arthritis. It's filled with tips, exercises, and advice to help you get better in your hip arthritis, to fix the problem. And if you want the complete solution, we have a comprehensive program called the Hip Arthritis Recovery Program. I've packaged my treatment approach, the entire thing from start to finish, from somebody who's just got arthritis, or it might be very severe, to somebody who's had arthritis for decades and it's even bone on bone. It can help you resolve the root problem of hip arthritis so that you can avoid a hip replacement surgery and, of course, sleep just fine and not have to worry about your hip being a problem later in life. You can find a link to that program down in the description below, along with the link to that playlist. Hey, if this video was helpful for you, please give us a thumbs up. Please share this with somebody you think needs to see this. And don't forget to subscribe to our channel and hit that notification bell so that you don't miss out on any of the videos that we post each and every week. And please drop a comment if you have a question, if you want to let us know how you're doing. We love to answer our comments as fast as possible. I'll see you in the next video. Have a wonderful day.